3 months. I said 3 months, but here we are. There are Bayverse figures on the desk, so you know exactly what we're talking about today. You might know him, but if you don't, I don't blame you because he was in the movie for like a minute or two. He's always lurking in the background, and even I played up the whole background character thing. But without further ado, I'd like to introduce Transformers Studio Series, Jolt. I don't know what it is about the final wave of Studio Series for 2021, but it's by far the weirdest one to me. Something about seeing Grindor, Thrust, and Jolt is like seeing three puzzle pieces that have nothing to do with each other, but somehow they make sense together. Oh yeah, there are the other figures from this wave, but they don't really apply to the narrative that this is the weirdest wave of 2021. So about Jolt, but not this toy in particular, but him in general. The most fascinating thing about Jolt is that he got a toy back in 2009 when there were other characters in the movie who didn't even get a toy till Studio Series. He had very little screen time, and yet Hasbro still pulls through. Just like anyone else my age, I first saw Jolt in the movie as a kid through the movie, and I didn't really care about him at first until I got the original deluxe figure. Guess what I did to that toy? Something I always did with all my toys around this time. I destroyed it! Yes, I was one of those kids, so I guess that's what made Bionicle perfect for me, despite all of those faults. We fast forward a year later to the year of 2010 where I got a brand new deluxe Jolt thanks to Easter being a thing. The Jolt in question comes from the Hunt for the Decepticons toy line under the name of Electrostatic Jolt. Surprisingly, I took good care of this toy for 12 years, but unfortunately I sold him last year because of somebody and felt that it was his time to go. But now I regret that decision because I miss that toy very much. So, I bet you're wondering, did I get the Dark of the Moon Deluxe? No, I did not. 9-year-old me chose to get Dark of the Moon Sideswipe instead of Jolt, and I think I remember why, but it doesn't really matter at this point when we got better Sideswipes and Jolts. Although, I would like to get the Dark of the Moon Deluxe since I didn't get to experience it, but kind of would prefer to get the movie advanced one from Age of Extinction since it's actually blue instead of just gray. But I guess I'll just take whatever I can get. Now we flash forward 13 years later to Studio Series. One of my favorite toy lines giving me brand new toys of characters I love and characters who never got any. Jolt came to me from Walmart right before I left to Hatchby for 3 months. Crazy that that's almost been 2 years since then. Let's start with the car mode. This is Jolt's iconic Chevy Volt alternate mode, which is a plug-in hybrid, meaning it can take either electricity or gas to run. Now, do you understand why Jolt has electric whips now? There's no way they purposely named Jolt Jolt just because it rhymes with Volt. The only way it makes sense to me is that's just a pure coincidence and they didn't have any thought to it at all. Although when I was a kid I always liked the idea that his name rhymed with the car mode because it made him one big cohesive bot. Looking extremely close to the details on the top of the car is by far the coolest looking part. The tech greebles on the top of the car looked vaguely Autobot logo shaped. I don't know if it was planned to be like that, but it's better than having an Autobot logo slapped on the hood of the car. Something of note with Jolt's vehicle mode is that from the front windshield to the back rear window, it kind of looks like another electric vehicle owned by a man-child billionaire. Yes, I'm well aware that the Chevy Volt came out way before a Tesla, but just seeing this detail on this car mode kind of reminds me of one. The part with the tech greebles on top of Jolt's car is supposed to be solid black based on some research I did on the Chevy Volt. You can even see the molding where the front windshield ends and where the back window begins, but it isn't painted. You might think where I'm headed with this is that Hasbro should have definitely painted the top of the car just so it makes the price justifiable, but honestly I don't give a shit that it's not painted. The clear plastic is tinted dark enough to give the illusion of a black top. Plus, if it was painted, we wouldn't get the tech greebles, which is in line for Jolt's characterization of being a technician, where that information was only given in the toy bios. I love the look of the front wheels with the blue plastic backing. Seeing the middle part of the rim in a perfectly sized hole is super satisfying. The back wheels don't do that for me though. The accessories have very simple storage in the car mode. You just get Jolt and you just tab in the whips. That's simple. It's with these tabs, by the way, the only tabs on the whips. And there you go. They can come off very easily though, you just pull down. There you go. The car mode overall is just one of my favorites from Revenge of the Fallen, third to Bumblebee and Sideswipe, but Jolt has the charm to me of G1 skids. The Volt to me is a basic everyday kind of car that I would expect to see in public majority of the time, which is the kind of vibe I get from G1 skids when I first saw him with coherent thought. Basically, Jolt probably could have been called skids instead of, you know, and it would have been a much better fit if we're going about things being G1 accurate in the Bay films. I don't know, but seeing Jolt next to other sports cars is so jarring since I see him just as an everyday vehicle. You know, maybe that's why I have a connection with Jolt, with him being a character who fades into the background very much like myself in groups of random people. Is that what people on TikTok call NPCs? The transformation for Jolt, let's get into it. So obviously we're gonna start in car mode because that's what we just talked about. So first thing you gotta do is you gotta open up the whole front of the car, straighten it out, make sure it like locks in to place, and then you open it up like one of those old fast action battler thingies where you open it up and then there's a transformer body like right here. I don't remember what they're called. The next thing you want to do is straighten the feet out, fold in the wheels, then untab this from there, untab it from there, then untab the legs, straighten them out, then go to these panels with the wheels. So you see there's a groove in there, so you just move it into that groove. Same thing on the other side, see the groove in there where it's like a circular thingamabob in there, and then just fit it in. Then you get up here, split the arms, straighten the hands out, untab the arms out of there, then untab the taillights and straighten them out. Then you take this whole backpack section and then you tab it in there, then you open this and then you tab it in there. Then I guess might as well also straighten out his whole body, so moving his chest. Then split this in half. Now you got Jolt all transformed up in his robot mode. His transformation is by far pretty nice. It's very simple, I'll give it that. I like simple transformations, but I also do like complicated transformations, but just doing a nice simple one is very nice. Can never go wrong with it. Damn, that robot mode is so good. It's almost like he jumped out of the screen, kind of. He's definitely proportioned a lot closer to his movie self, but he has the same energy as the 2009 Deluxe underneath it all. Something I love about the live action movie figures is all the sculpting, which is no different to Jolt. It's definitely one of my favorite parts about all of these toys. An interesting part of the robot mode is all the clear parts on his crotch and thighs. They seem to be inserted pieces, but it really adds to the whole technician thing. I wonder if it's part of his original movie design or if it's something the designers decided to add just for the fun of it, but regardless, I like it. Another fun thing is seeing faux parts of his wheels on his chest and knees, knowing full well they're just hanging out elsewhere. I'm telling you, it's the charm of being a Transformers toy. I really enjoy that all of Jolt's car kibble kind of makes it look like he's wearing a lab coat. You know, he kind of probably should have been in Dark of the Moon taking Q's place. But you know what? Scratch that, he would have to die. Speaking of mugs, Jolt's head is an interesting thing. Apparently, it's movie accurate from the very far away look we get of it from the movie. When I first saw this head sculpt for Jolt, I wasn't really vibing with it because I was so accustomed to the original toy head, but that's based off concept art, and it's still the head I prefer. There is a bit of the old head in Jolt's new head, specifically in the mouth region. I did hope at the time when he was revealed that someone would make his old head in like shapeways or something, but nobody ever did, and I've grown very accustomed to this head on this body specifically, and if I want the old head, I could just buy the old toys. Jolt articulation, let's do it. So, first off, Jolt can look all the way up. Probably the only Studio Series figure off the top of my head I can think that can actually look all the way up. You can look down. It doesn't look like he's looking all the way down, but it does look like he's regretful for something. You can look left to right, and he's got head tilt. It's very slight, but you can do it. The arm goes all the way up, but not all the way around because of how shoulder is. Same thing goes for when you do it backwards. It's because of this part right here, which I don't mind. You could technically use the transformation joint to move it back, but you're not going to get very far with it. He's got a bicep swivel. He's got more than 90 elbows. He's got nothing at the wrists, but you could hinge him in. So, I don't know what that purpose... I don't know what you could use that for, but you'd probably do something like this. I don't know. You could technically, I guess you could count this an ab crunch, but it looks like shit when you use it. So never mind. But I'll do it to show this. It's got a waist swivel, but when you have it in context, it doesn't. You can't really use it as much. The legs, they go that far forward, that far back. So of all this kibble, and then the legs can go all the way out, can go this far out, but you also have to work with like the kibble and stuff. So also these are ball jointed, so you can just move them around and stuff, get them out of the way for any poses you might want to do, although it is a lot of clashing, but I don't really care. It's got, can't even tell. Can't even tell. Hold on. Looks a little bit more than 90 at the knee. Right here, he's got a swivel right here for his other part of his leg. And then his foot can hinge up and down. Down is mostly for transformation, but you can move it up. Don't know what purpose that would serve, but you can do it if you want to do it. So yeah, that's pretty much Jolt. And then because of his articulation, he can be quite a bit of a pain to stand. Like either A stance or like have his legs really close together. But yeah, he either leans to one side, or unless you get lucky and able to stabilize him so that all his weight is in the middle. So yeah, his articulation is obviously very limited, but what else could you ask of Jolt? How about Jolt's accessories? Well, to attach them is a whole story in itself. We go to Jolt's lovely claw hands, and you take off his thumbs. So as you can see, look at that, take off his thumb, which reveals a 5mm hole in his hand. And to attach the whip, there's a 5mm port. 5mm port. You just pour it into his hand, and that's basically it. So now let's do the other side. Take off the thumb, pour in the whip, and there you go. Now you got Jolt and his whips on his hands, just like in the movie. And he can't support the weight. It's funny. If you're wondering where the thumbs go, well, they just tab into the same tabs that the whips use in vehicle mode. Unfortunately, majority of the time, the thumbs do fight you when you put them in, and you might lose them on your carpet. Or almost lose them. And if you do, it's quite unlucky of you. For display purposes, I just leave the hands in full. The whips do take up a lot of space, so they just go in the tub of accessories I don't use often. Jolt's robot mode overall is pretty cool. Definitely not as groundbreaking as, say, Starscream or Devastator, but does he really need to be? Jolt doesn't need to be an ultra super badass, and he does his best being himself anyways. What's more badass than being yourself? Absolutely nothing. Jolt is the epitome of being your truest self, because while you may blend into the background for the longest time, your moment will come and you will shine your brightest, because remember, without Jolt, Optimus would have never defeated the Fallen, and that's my kind of bot. Hoist is definitely one of my favorites, but not an all-time favorite like Jolt. Except I kind of still want to have a Hoist shelf, but a Jolt shelf would be cool too, even if it would be as small, if not smaller. So now this video is a petition to get a movie masterpiece figure of Jolt. Get on it, Hasbro Takara. I'll be waiting. All done with Jolt now. I figured we'd go big on such a minute little character, and Jolt just happens to be a character I fancy from the Bayverse. It's majorly the reason why I use Jolt in such significant roles in my Transformers stories, where Shockwave uses him as a disguise just like an animated, except long arms exchange for Jolt. And it's so that he's not forgotten on the wayside like so many other characters. I'm usually in my own circles when it comes to Transformers, so for all I know there could be a group of so much more people who also think Jolt is an underappreciated character, so that idea alone is probably something so unoriginal. Yet Jolt continues to feel so small to me when it comes to his role in the entirety of Transformers. Anyways, that's all I got for you for today. Be like Jolt and be your bestest and truest self that only you could conjure into this beautiful thing we call life. Your time to shine will come, and I promise you it will be wonderful. So what's next to review? I think you might be able to see him, so let's pull him down. Shall we? He's been hanging out here for a few days, so I haven't been able to play with him, but finally we can take him down from the wall. Well, shelf. It's in the wall of the shelf. So it doesn't really matter. So finally he's pulled down. Let's straighten him out. Straighten him out real quick. So yeah, we're going to do a second look on the retro carded Ben Reilly Spider-Man. About damn time, because his old video kind of sucks. So I'll see you then when we talk about Spider-Man.